I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have no one signed up this evening for open forum, so we can get right over to general business. The first item on our agenda is to vote to accept the $5,000 Jack Miller Center Teaching 250 donation that was awarded to Tiverton Middle School on behalf of Christine Costa. Mr. Andrade?
Thank you, Chairwoman Farnworth. Yes, as Ms. Costa said last meeting, we're excited that she was chosen on behalf of Rhode Island and 50 other teachers nationwide to receive this award in recognition of her instruction focused on American history and civic engagement. As Ms. Costa explained at the January 27th school committee meeting, the awarded funds will be donated to the middle school student activity account of the amount of $5,000 used specifically for field trips related to the Declaration of Independence and the 250th anniversary. Accept this donation will directly benefit students connected to historical study, civic participation, and academic achievement. She will utilize these funds to bring a set of students on various field trips between the middle school and the high school, and also the high school being the mock trial team.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept the $5,000 Jack Miller Center Teaching 250 donation?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? No. Okay, all in favor? Approved, thank you. Next up, we have discussed deficit reduction plan. I know we didn't put a name on this. Mr. Andrade, did you want to take it, or did you want me to just give a brief background? I did briefly look at the town council meeting last night.
If you want to proceed.
Sure, sure. This is just to keep everybody in the loop. The FY25 deficit, the town of Tiverton, of course, they covered that deficit as it occurred from their own general fund. But that doesn't excuse the school department from paying it back to the town. Clearly, we don't have any excess funds to be making, $100 payments. It just makes no sense. However, we do have the Rhode construction reimbursements that have been coming in as a result of prior construction projects. And as such, the town will be drafting an amendment to the current ordinance that has those funds going into a school capital restricted fund. And they will be diverting those funds until the entire deficit is satisfied. The ordinance change was put in front of the town council last night. They voted to move it forward. Next part of the step is for them to advertise a public hearing, which would be 21 days from the advertisement, after which they will hold the public hearing and take a vote. It is my hope and expectation that this will pass and that we will be able to pay the deficit off with whatever funds are there. And if there's any extra, I guess we'll have to talk about that after, but I don't anticipate there's going to be a lot of extra. The FY25 audit is nearly complete. And from what I understand, the treasurer as well as the finance director for the schools are both taking a look at the draft. And the deficit number is expected to land at about $1.25 million, just shy of that. So once that is finalized, there will be, after the ordinance change is approved, then there will be a resolution put forth by both the town council and the school committee with the dollar amount stated, to kind of have that handshake that we both acknowledge that is the deficit, and that's we all agree that that's where the payment should come from. Are there any questions? Okay.
There was some discussion at some other points of it coming, like some coming from a little bit here, a little bit there, but that's really what we've landed on, is it'll all come from there.
Well, that's the net due. So, we have already covered some of that deficit with some funds that have come in FY '25.
Oh, so that's probably what I'm thinking of, because I know there was other sources that we had thought we could cover at least some of it with, yeah?
Yes, that is correct, and also we're trying to keep it, accounting-wise, pretty neat.
Simple.
Yeah, simple
Yeah.
and neat, yeah.
Okay, great, good, thanks.
Okay.
And thank you to the council.
All right. All right, so now we can move on to the crux of our meeting, which is discussion, and I did put possible vote on the FY '27 proposed school budget. Please don't take that to mean that I expect that we will be taking a big vote this evening. But should we need to take any incremental votes, we have that option as part of our discussion this evening. Last time around, we were able to get through, I would say, about 3/4 of the budget, so we'll continue on that line-by-line review this evening, and then we'll go from there. Mr. Andrade.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, school committee members again. So we did leave off on the second portion of the purchase property and other services, excuse me. However, I'll just start fresh on this page, purchase property and other services. So there's not much on the top section anyway. As you can see, it was a change of a decrease of $5,397. Purchase property services for people at home that maybe can't see the screen. This is our rubbish disposal services, ground maintenance, maintenance and repairs, water bill, telephone bill, which is also the internet, rental of equipment and vehicles, which would include copiers or any other type of equipment rental that we would need, such as fixing parking lot lights, and our alarm and fire safety services, so our quarterly inspections and any inspection costs, part of those services to keep the schools secure and safe. So, again, I think we covered all the questions last time, but I'll just pause there just to make sure if there was any other questions on this section.
I do have two questions.
Okay.
There was a time we were talking about seeing if the town, we could piggyback services with them with the rubbish disposal and maybe the plowing. Did that go anywhere?
So the plowing is all done in-house by our maintenance team. So I haven't personally proceeded with any discussion on the plowing. You are correct, Kim, that was brought up. It just hasn't, gone further than an initial discussion.
Okay.
The rubbish disposal, we actually do piggyback on the town. So right now, we're using Mega. So what we do is the town would go out to bid. The school committee would piggyback that bid, which I need to follow up with Administrator Jones on. We talked about it briefly on the bid, but so what happens is the town would secure a vendor, and then the school would separately enter into agreement with that vendor, because obviously the school doesn't have residential service. We have commercial services where we're renting dumpster-like trash, and it's picked up. Some schools are picked up twice a week, some schools are picked up once a week. One's an 8-yard, one's a 10-yard, et cetera. So we would piggyback on their bid as far as a vendor, and then we would go into our own agreement.
So why do we do that? There would be absolutely no advantage to us going out to bid ourselves?
We could,
I mean, we're a
but-
fairly large account.
Yeah, we could, but I don't think we would benefit, because these trucks run on very low miles per gallon, gas-wise, or diesel. So usually, the cheapest vendor is who's in-house in district. So we could very well go out to bid, but obviously that would cost advertisement costs of the Providence Journal, which is low, $500-something. But we very well could go out to bid ourselves if that's what you guys choose to do. Since I've been on board, our current contract with Mega goes before my time, so I think it's up, based on the town council last night, it's up July 1st, so the 3-year service that's been provided to the schools would be up as well.
Okay.
Yep.
So is there any discount by going under the town's vendor?
No, it's just the kind of, you save on the advertisement, the bidding. It's just the procurement level services that we're doing it's kind of just like the oil bid. We go out to one bid for the town of Tiverton, town of Little Compton, Tiverton schools, Little Compton schools.
Okay,
So
thank you.
Same idea, no problem. Any other questions?
I think that I had brought up the subject of maintenance contracts.
You did.
Where did we land on that?
We
And
kind of
apologizing.
were just discussing. If you would like, I did write up a little memo that I can read and summarize my thoughts. And
Okay.
But obviously, you guys are the policymakers and the decision makers. We're budget oversight. But I basically would, as I wrote this up last meeting, but I appreciate the committee looking at ways to stabilize maintenance operations. Given, and this is just my personal opinion, superintendent might have another opinion, we haven't discussed this, but I did write this up, so, given current budget pressures and recent staffing reductions, I think it's important we first identify whether our challenges stem from insufficient preventive maintenance, outdated control system, or simply limited staffing capacity. Again, I'm just talking in general. But before committing to long-term maintenance contract, it may be worth considering strengthening our preventative maintenance and targeted service calls could address issues more short-term. While we plan for strategic upgrades where controls or equipment are truly failing, which I know you're a part of the building committee, but I did bring this up in the building committee with controls specifically at Pecasset. So we do have failing controls and systems, you know, they are very outdated, you know. The schools are not, you know, high school, middle school, a little older, Range is not as old, but we're approaching 20 years, so system-wise, it's old, you know, technology-wise, that's quite old. Ranger was updated, but I'm just giving you an example. So my thought is, I would rather, you know, it's just my personal opinion from a financial standpoint, I don't want to put us in a financial constraint when it comes to a long-term contract, given, again, going back to staff and reductions. Personally, I would rather beef up our custodial staff, to be honest with you, or another area of need, such as part-time teacher assistants, a librarian, et cetera. So when talking about maintenance contracts for service calls, what I mean is, you know, it's things we're doing today where we're getting, the service calls are coming in and they're doing their annual maintenance, just like any residential house would do with a boiler, et cetera, right? But all the problems the schools have faced in the last 2 years since I've been here, a maintenance contract would not necessarily help or cover. That's the point I'm trying to make. Everything that's occurred is due to a failure of a component where, I don't know necessarily, again, I'm not a professional HVAC plumber, but I don't know if a failure that we are experienced would come up necessarily during a maintenance call. And what I say is, I'll use my personal example, is I had my boiler cleaned out in August and my system failed 2 months later. I had literally no hot water or heat. So I got my boiler service, but nothing came out 2 months prior, and that's the example I'm basically given is, by having a maintenance contract, they come out, they test everything, and we kind of did this last year when we had the Fort Barton issue. We had a company check all schools, as many of you remember, but, you know, we've had quite a few failures where a maintenance contract wouldn't necessarily capture, in my opinion. I don't know if that's helpful at all, but.
It's helpful to me, but then that does beg the question, do we have, and I understand that we have lost headcount in our employee ranks, and that includes in the maintenance area. In this budget, by and large, is not providing for anything above and beyond what we have today.
Correct.
But my question is it enough? Because just in the last 2 years, and the only school that hasn't had an issue is the middle school.
Mm-hmm.
We've had significant issues at all of the others.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make sure that as we're going through this budgeting process, that this is something we're taking into consideration. If a maintenance contract is not the right answer, that's fine. But what is the right answer so that we can try to head off some of these issues that are to come. I understand some things you're never going to avoid, like you said.
Correct.
You know,
It's
you
just
have your
unfortunate.
boiler serviced, and it can still break the next day. I get it. But I have to think, you know, the experience that we're seeing here is telling me, you know, what is it we can do? And would it require any additional operating investment?
I mean, that seems like that's what a contingency fund or fund balance are for.
Correct.
Just a couple of questions, too, to go along with this discussion. So when we did the Raise the Roof project, was that 2018, maybe? That didn't upgrade the technology of the systems?
That was just high school and middle school.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was 7, 8 years ago.
So those systems are a little newer?
Those systems are fine. I'm talking specifically.
Elementary.
Well, Picasset and Fort Barton. Ranger
Okay.
was upgraded in 2000 as well.
Okay.
The problem with these control systems, though, is I think we've discussed in public session and superintendent in his updates is, right now, our systems are totally controlled by one vendor. And that limits our ability, as we've seen at Picasset recently, is we had emergency service call, and we got to kind of wait for them to free up a personnel to send to us.
Right.
And it's unfortunate we can't call anyone else because they control, their controls are specifically to their systems, you know, so
Right.
you need them to, actively control the computer and the system.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And the company that came out last year to evaluate all the systems after
Yep.
the Fort Barton issue,
Yep.
that wasn't any sort of preventive maintenance? That was more of an evaluation of the systems?
It was both. They did quite a bit. We spent,
Okay.
the council was gracious enough to give us a $100,000
Right,
blanket,
right.
and we had a lot of fixes. So 50 of that went to Fort Barton specifically, and then the other 50 was spread throughout the schools.
In that evaluation, did they provide like a detailed summary of like concerns going forward or recommendations?
Yes, one of them is the Picasset controls,
Yeah.
which we've been discussing at the building committee level.
Yep.
However, that's a significant investment.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily, I know you're not part of the building committee, so I'm just explaining
Yeah,
at a high
yeah.
level, is it doesn't necessarily fix problems,
Mm-hmm.
but what it does is update your technology and your controls.
Yeah.
So during the building committee, I used, if you buy a new 2026 Dodge Ram, it's going to tell you when you need an oil change
Yes,
or need
yes.
XYZ, a flat, et cetera, versus a 2000 Dodge Ram, you know?
Yeah, so you can kind of get ahead of things.
Yeah, yeah.
Potentially.
And
if
there's
you get
some
alerts.
rebates and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it's still 150 to 170,000 to update.
Right.
And that would update certain components of the boilers and such, but again, that's one school.
Right.
So it's a significant investment for one
Right.
school, but that's what we're experiencing. I wouldn't suggest updating Ranger because it was just updated in 2000.
Yep.
But, 2020, not 2000. 2020 Ranger was updated. But we only have one vendor we can work with at Ranger currently. Same with Picasset, but,
Yeah. Well, I definitely appreciate this discussion because, like you said, it's in the last 2 years, it's been a lot. And of course,
Yeah.
this type of winter puts every system to the test, so it's
Yeah.
kind of not a surprise in that respect. But whatever we can do to think about,
Yeah, we have, like, for instance, we had the problem at Ranger, and, we have some takeaways to that we need to present from a capital level, due to different functions of the boiler and such as what type of oil, where vendors are now providing us, which is B20. The law was just set this summer, so this is the first year on that new oil, B20. Anything else to add, Superintendent, that I'm missing?
Just to add that an annual maintenance contract for HVAC systems would be a good investment for the Tiverton School District. But those contracts, we would need to get some estimates, but as I understand it, those contracts are usually about $2,000 per unit. So for the 5 buildings, we're looking at about a $10,000 cost. In a year where where $10,000 is a big difference to the Tiverton School District, I'm not sure this is the year for a maintenance contract. However, we do need to think long-term about having a maintenance contract for our HVAC system. They can prevent costly repairs in the future, and they will not prevent some of the emergencies like we experienced at Ranger last week.
thank you.
what would a maintenance contract give to us? Because honestly, $30 million budget, $10,000 is not that much. Is it worth it to explore this and put some money in our budget for it?
I think it's totally worth it to explore it. I think we need to get some figures to the committee and see what it would cost. I believe it typically consists of a twice annual inspection of the systems and recommendations for maintenance, which sometimes come at a price. That's my understanding of what an annual maintenance contract would involve.
Yeah, I agree, and that's kind of, I guess we're speaking the same. I would agree with that. What I'm referring to is last year, I knew you weren't here, Superintendent, but last year, I think we had a quote of like 50 to 60, but.
Yeah, it was much more than
But
10.
that was, again, is how far do you want to go? That was, because you have different vendors. So at Pecasset and Fort Barton, you're dealing with gas, so you need plumbing and different vendors. When you have at Ranger, the high school, middle school, you have an oil boiler, different vendor. And then you bring in plumbers. So that was a complete package. It was, I think, around 60, 70 grand. However, an annual maintenance contract, more on the line of a service call contract versus twice a year, 10 grand, I would agree with, be reasonable. But again, to the superintendent's point is, it doesn't mean we might have a failure tomorrow. It's an unfortunate circumstance, you know?
Agreed, but I would have a level of comfort knowing that we have industry experts on site
Yep,
taking a look at our systems proactively,
yeah.
to maybe call attention to things that are perhaps in need of repair before they break.
Yeah, and I think we should, again, I do it annually. I'll use my house, for example. I have a pellet stove. I bring in a guy every August, September, clean my pellet stove, let me know if it needs a new blower or whatever. Same
Right.
thing with my oil burner. I have Valcourt come in every year. They service it. So we need to do that regardless, in my
Yeah.
opinion. We need to budget for that. So,
So is this something maybe we can revisit at our next meeting in a little bit more depth, to give you a chance to maybe get some definite information on?
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
Brenda, didn't you say at one of our other meetings that we have basically a maintenance checklist?
we do.
That
yes.
our own capable staff, go through that checklist, and that's sort of been developed on their experience based, of the actual, systems that they deal with every single day. Don't we already, we do have something that does that already?
So we.
I guess I'm just wondering what the
Yeah.
difference is between that and somebody coming in who twice a year.
Yeah, so we would still need someone twice a year, because I don't think we have the, well, Mr. Mendes does majority, almost all of it. Custodial staff isn't so much certified in boilers
Okay.
and HVAC. Luckily, Mr. Mendes is a jack of all trades type person, so that helps. But when it comes to clean a filter and a boiler, and we're talking about commercial, we should bring in a company to do that. That should happen no matter what, and we do. But it's a matter of, I think the question is beefing up our budget for that, because really our budget is lean when it comes to cleaning out filters in a boiler versus, a repair of a product or a component of the boiler.
I
you
would
know?
think it comes to, there's only so much they can do in a day, so.
Correct.
Where are you spending your time
Yes,
versus that?
and with post-COVID inflation, plumbers and HVAC personnel are not cheap, as we all
Yeah,
know.
oh, yeah.
And electricians, it's, everything's 50% higher.
Good trade, kids.
It's, I say it's the next $1 million,
Oh, yeah.
$1 million
Yeah.
Business is
Definitely
plumbing and
is.
electrician.
I know, thinking about at work, the facilities team has some HVAC certified employees. They definitely have 1 to 2 with certifications for boiler operations, because it's 24/7, somebody has to be on site. Do we have anyone with the certifications?
We do.
Okay.
Mr. Mendes is, he goes to quite a few trust, the Rhode Island Interlocal Trust
Yeah.
seminars and webinars. So he has quite a few of those credentials.
Gotcha.
Yep. OSHA certified, et cetera.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. But to my point, you know, if we have a problem at the high school and then something has to cast it, we only have one person. You know what I mean? So it's a tough
So we
gamble.
had talked about last time that, you know, knock on wood, we may be able to reduce like unemployment insurance depending
Yeah.
upon the number of layoffs. So maybe that's something we keep in mind is if we can reduce some of those
Yeah.
other lines, that this would be a place to, you know, slide in a
Yep.
need.
Yep.
Because to your point, okay, it's only $10,000, but what are you gonna cut for it?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
And we have to find it. So anything you wanna add,
Yep.
you know, where's the other side?
Very good point. And also, as you know, it's, a budget's a moving target.
It
So what
is.
you see in today might not be what you see tomorrow. but,
Exactly.
As of right now, we're still within this ballpark, but just obviously, still early in the game.
And that would be, if we did increase that, you would increase the 54322 line?
That or the maintenance and repairs plumbing,
Oh,
but
the
yes,
next
yeah.
one?
Yeah,
Okay,
they're all
just-
kind of,
I'm kinda just.
they all
making
run
a
into
note.
each other, Deb, but yes, you're
But you would,
accurate.
that's where we would put a
Yeah, that's all-
10K potential increase? Okay.
Yep, that's all for, related to maintenance and repairs for, heating components.
Okay.
Yep, very.
I mean, if you look back at prior years,
Yep.
and granted, in FY '24, I think we had help from the town on that, right?
FY '25, correct, that's why it's zero.
Okay, well, FY '24, we spent $95,000.
Yep, correct.
Even FY '22 was $35,000, and you're only budgeting 28.
Correct.
And these buildings are not getting any younger,
No,
nor
no,
are the systems.
yep.
So, okay.
Yep, it's definitely lean, because as I said last time, is, the town administrator, town council has been gracious to, offer their help in certain meetings, but,
And that's
Obviously, they
very
only-
appreciated.
yeah,
But
obviously,
we
they
are
only have so
responsible
much.
for the operation of these schools.
Correct,
And,
and they-
and we can't be under budgeting
No.
with
and they-
the thinking that we can just go running for help.
No, correct.
right?
And obviously, they only have so much funds to work with as well, so.
Okay, my last question on this, and you may very well have talked to it at the last meeting, alarm and fire safety just popped into the budget in FY '26.
Yes.
What does that include?
So that's just a new UCOA account that's specific to Tiverton, not Rhode, but something I wanted to break out. So alarm and fire safety services used to roll up into 54311, 54310. It was kind of a mixture between those accounts.
Okay.
And I'm kind of breaking those out, because one, it's personally, as my personal preference is to break out as many accounts as we can, because it's easier to see a budget oversight and also track different spending. And I think alarm and fire safety services should be its own UCOA line item because it's such a high priority cost. And again, that's our monthly maintenance service contracts, along with our quarterly maintenance service contracts, depending what components you're talking about, and also some expense for services-related items such as upgrades to a communication panel or whatever the case may be. Because when they do come for their inspections, they try to find something. That's how they get paid.
But it just speaks to the fact that we're willing to put the preventative maintenance in those systems. We should be in all of our systems.
Yeah, yeah. So those are obviously, yep. Some of that has to do with the fire safety component, obviously, is a mandate through the fire marshal. We need those services, but yes, I agree.
Okay.
They're just as important.
Although if I add up those three, 10, 11, and 902, that is like a $37,000 increase.
It is.
902,
I added 10, 11, and 9.
Yeah, so it's a mixture, and then the alarm is actually in, I apologize, I misspoke. The alarm part of the service is actually in one of Danny's accounts, technology accounts.
Oh.
Yep, so I apologize. It is the other technical services in the previous page on 53502 was the alarm. And that's another reason why I wanted to break it out, was because
It's not,
it
you
should be.
can't see what it is.
Yeah, it should be together, and alarm services getting lumped with technology. Say we underspend.
What was the other one, Brendan?
It's the other technical services, 53502 on the previous slide.
Oh, yep, I got it, thank
Yep.
you.
So you can see that.
Big drop.
Yeah, $15,000
Yep, okay.
decrease, so, yep. And then the fire safety, I don't know why, but they were kind of mixed between 54310 and 54311. And when it comes to fire safety services, that's also inspections, various inspections to fire safety, such as the sprinklers, and then also the panels, the communications to the police station, which the police station is the dispatch for fire and police, but. And we
Okay,
had a,
anything else from anyone on purchase property services?
Just just the top, right?
Just the top. We can go to other purchase services next.
yep, so obviously I gave a presentation on transportation, and the goal here is to eliminate a bus, as we discussed, so, as you can kind of see with statewide and transportation contracts, 55110 and 55111, the first two lines, those kind of, pretty much net to zero. There's a very small increase due to that reduction. Property and liability insurance, I'm using a 5% increase. Student accident insurance, that kind of stays the same. It's kind of a man show that provides that student accident insurance, and it's $800, very short change. Advertising costs are strictly for going out to bid. Any RFP and bids in the Providence Journal, which are state law, go to the Providence Journal for the school department. Hopefully, General Assembly changes that one day, and we can use online technology for free, but the schools still need to go to the Providence Journal or a newspaper outlet. Tuition to other school districts. This would be tuition for CT students attending out of district. Tuition to private sources, another increase. This would be, tuition to private sources, 55630 and 55650 are both your out-of-district placements for special education. The reason there's two lines, one is in private sources in Rhode Island, and the other is out-of-state, such as someone attending a school in Massachusetts as an out-of-district placement, or Connecticut, et cetera. Tuition to charter schools, again, this would be tuition to a charter school in Rhode Island. Dual enrollment, this is essentially sometimes offered to certain high school folks that maybe could take classes at CCRI, et cetera, and we cover the dual enrollment costs of those certain classes. And the last two line items are travel for teachers and non-teachers. So this would be, the majority of this number is made up of contractual obligations and contracts, and the other portion is teachers traveling from building to building. For instance, we have an art teacher that might start at Ranger and go to the middle school to finish her day, so the travel would be given, or it could be a custodian that has to travel between the high school and Ranger or Pecasset, whatever the case may be. So this is an increase of $115,408 specifically for tuition, out-of-district tuition. Any questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Are we anticipating a decrease in dual enrollment?
So, no, but good question. So just jumping ahead to answer your question, Jocelyn. Let me just find the number so I can give it to you. I apologize.
Okay.
There's another dual enrollment area.
Okay.
It's in 5.3, it's in the 5.3s, let me just find it. 53221, virtual high school. So, to answer your question, yes and no. So, we continue to utilize about $15,000 for dual enrollment between those accounts. The reason they're kind of separated, they're really connected, but UCOA-wise, they're separated for different reasons. We did have a agreement with New England Tech, and I'm not sure if we will pursue that agreement.
Okay.
But those students that were part of that are graduating.
Yep.
So that's something we need to consider. But based on early conversations is, we have to kind of gauge that, but we're utilizing, a small portion. Obviously, it's a low number, but a decrease.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. And that's kind of one of those moving targets I'm speaking of, and they're working on scheduling now, so something could be brought up to a guidance counselor and we'll discuss it, but that's part of the guidance counselor's purview when they're speaking to the students with scheduling.
You gave me a little comfort. I'd hate to see that go away because it's a great opportunity for high
Yeah,
schoolers.
absolutely, yep. Yeah, another reason is I don't think we're gonna go over budget this year. I think we're gonna be under budget, so. Any other questions on other purchase services?
Go ahead,
It's-
Diane, go ahead, I'll go after you.
No, I mean, it's becoming more and more, the tuition to other schools is becoming more and more significant in the grand scheme. And it is a cost that we have zero control over. And is quite often the reason behind unexpected expenses. So, to the extent that any of it can be controlled, I'm sure the district does. But again, it is what it is.
How are you estimating that? So I'm looking at the CTE line.
Yep. So we estimate it by, we'll get into the enrollment report shortly, but basically what we're doing is we're seeing the trends over the last few years. So when I first entered the district last year, we were seeing a trend of average about 20 kids per grade. And now since this year, the current ninth graders that exited were a little higher than that 20 average. So we're kind of utilizing the seniors that are graduating those schools and kind of increasing that number a bit based on the trend of ninth graders this year. And then we also continue to track that moving target based on guidance from the guidance department at the middle school when they're talking to eighth grade parents and students, et cetera.
So I don't have that in front of me, but the budget to actual for that 1.4 million is, you feel you're pretty comfortable you're gonna hit that?
Yes, yeah, we should
Okay.
be pretty good based on current enrollment.
Okay. And then, so then it's what, maybe another student?
Yeah, and we have, this year, we had one student come back in October, another
Well, yeah,
student.
I mean, the whole thing's a
Yeah.
moving target, but
Yeah,
that's how you're
yeah.
doing it, is you're kind of looking at trends.
Correct.
Who went in FY '26, you know who's graduating, but you assume that basically it's gonna be the same.
Yeah, yep. And again, that's a moving target line item that I'll keep revisiting till June, July.
Yep.
You know.
And the tuition to private sources,
Yep.
that has continued to go up significantly, but I just want to, I mean, we literally have no control over that. We have to pay whatever the school charges us for
Correct.
that placement.
Yep, or DCYF placements, et
Yeah,
cetera.
because I know we've talked about that before, that there really is very little control
Very little.
for the public school districts over the tuition increases that get passed along. I know we've talked with our legislators about that before, but we've seen no movement or no, I mean, it would be nice if we could kind of have, like the statewide busing contract, that there's
Yeah.
some sort of statewide agreement that a public school child is going to be charged X, but it's really, we have nothing, and
No.
nothing that we see coming.
No.
Okay.
Nope, and this number, just to give you a perspective too, this number is the general fund budget. We do utilize some IDA Part B to cover that out-of-district placement tuition as well.
About how much?
225,000.
Okay.
Yep.
Brendan, when you mentioned tuition to private sources, DCYF, do they pay any of that, or is that the district's responsibility?
It's the district's responsibility.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's fun.
Thanks.
And they're always 4 months behind in their billing.
That's the state.
Okay. Are there any other questions on this section at this time? All right, guess we're ready. Supplies.
Alrighty. So supplies is a big line item area. So just to go through, general supplies and materials staying flat, uniforms staying flat for the custodial maintenance team. Graduation supplies are going up a little bit. We did conserve some spending last year with additional supplies we're able to utilize this year. That's why the number's a little low in FY26, but FY27, I plan on a short increase of $2,000. And that's mostly due to the rental of chairs and staging, et cetera, that we rent from a local company. Medical supplies stays pretty flat. The nurses are very good with their supplies and covering enough. We usually come, as you can see in prior years, we usually come under that number, so I'm pretty confident with that staying flat. Athletic supplies, we would like to increase this number, but given the budget constraints, we're staying flat. Natural gas, I do need to go back to our NRG, which is our vendor that provides a supply rate lower cost than Rhode Island Energy. So the agreement that we entered was a one-year agreement, so I do need to go back to them to renegotiate. So that's just an estimated short increase for next year. And again, we only have natural gas at 2 buildings out of our 5 buildings. Gasoline, this stays relatively flat. This is a gas for the district trucks along with the lunch, the food service program truck. Diesel fuel, same thing. We occasionally need a little bit of diesel fuel, but it's very little. Propane stays relatively small. It's just utilized for science classrooms. And vehicle maintenance supplies parts. This is decreasing a little bit because we had a lot of maintenance to do on the maintenance trucks this year, such as tires and whatnot. So I am decreasing that by $1,000 for next year. Fuel oil, moving target, as we know, but we're anticipating a small increase, but the reason the budget's staying flat is because I anticipate us being under this year and hoping for somewhat less than a 10 to 15 cent increase in a gallon, a cost per gallon next year. Electricity, we have a 3-year agreement, so that's staying flat. We should come within that lines. Obviously, those are variable utility costs, though. Lumber and hardware supplies, this is just breaking out from custodial supplies. Again, as I just spoke about, I like to break out as many lines as I can to justify the increases and decreases. So I continue to do that in my second year here at the school department. So again, that aligns with the custodial supplies, 56219. Plumbing and heating supplies, again, this is decreasing a little bit, but that's because we had a little project to do this year that was essentially covered by capital, but we had to obviously cover the expense until we verify that capital cost. So I see that going down a little bit in FY26, but if we continue to have issues in the plumbing and heating area, we'll either come in budget or a little over budget in FY26. But based on prior year, I'm comfortable with the FY27 number. Electrical supplies, flat. Custodial supplies, small increase of $1,000. Textbooks, this is a large increase. We spoke about this on the meeting on January 31st. This has to do with the mandate to U.S. civics and US Civics and the Science program at the middle school and high school. So this is to cover, again, we're putting this into a capital request, but the way we budget it, and then we get it reduced when the capital request is put in. So it's a net effect, basically, but it's in the budget, and the capital would be the revenue side to cover it. Library books, small increase. We would like to see that number go a little higher, but we're trying to take small steps to get that number back up and hope for the future of a librarian returning to the high school and middle school. Textbooks, non-public. This is unfortunately a variable item, but I'm staying flat based on FY26. What this is we have to cover private school children textbooks as any Tiverton residents that might attend a private school such as Hendricken, we have to cover their textbooks. Rhode does reimburse for certain subjects, but not all subjects. Web-based software and database library. This is still the software and databases we utilize within our libraries. Even though we don't have a librarian, this is still software we utilize because classes are still utilizing the libraries even though there's no librarian. So for instance, here at the high school, the English department utilizes the library quite often, and they help with the database, including the elementary librarian does help with the database. So these costs are still being utilized at all levels here in Tiverton School District. Electronic textbooks, that all has to do with certain textbooks for curriculum. And then textbooks for dual concurrent enrollment, we do see a small cost with those dual enrollment individuals that I just spoke about. And then technology-related supplies did decrease by $8,000. That has to do with a little mixture. So the general supplies and other technology areas are covering different aspects of the technology-related supplies that you might have seen in the prior years. So we're not necessarily cutting that budget. It's just being mixed between different accounts. So all in all, you do see a $79,000 increase or 7%, but as you can see, that specifically has to do with the mandate for the civics history curriculum at the middle school and the mandate of the science curriculum here at the high school. Any questions?
Go ahead, Kim.
Brendan, the textbooks for non-public, are those when a parent decides they want to send their child to a private school?
Correct.
And they pay the tuition?
Correct. So someone that's going to a Hendricken, you're paying the tuition out of pocket, but we're providing the textbooks.
And transportation?
No, we only provide transportation in our region. So region would be like St. Phil's, All Saints, this area. I think we're Region 7, which ranges from like Tiverton, Little Compton, Portsmouth, Middletown. So someone going to Hendricken and Warwick would not be in our region.
Okay.
Yep.
And web-based software and databases, is that the software for the books? Like when you
Correct.
check out the books?
Yep, Rhode Island Link and all those type of softwares. Yep, correct. There's other softwares in that number, but that's the majority of the cost. I think that's $6 or $7 grand. Yep,
Thanks.
no problem.
Can you explain to me why the one-time capital's in here? Don't we usually pull that out if we're gonna?
Yeah, so we always put the capital expenditure in our budget, and we call out capital on the revenue. So it kind of offsets each other still.
Do we?
Yeah, yeah.
Because, I mean, that increases MO.
Yeah, so, well, capital's treated differently, but basically what we're doing is the budget, we're showing total budget, total expenditures. So if we were to rip it out, capital would still be treated separately. So we're asking for 168,000, but there's 168,000 of costs within this budget for the capital. So either way you look at it, you could rip it out and,
No, and I could have swore that but maybe I just don't remember.
Yeah, this
That-
is how
that
we-
so we load the capital in the operating budget.
Yeah.
And then we just show it as offsetting revenue?
correct.
Yeah, if you looked at the second
Yeah, second slide.
slide, the grand total budget is $36.6 million.
Correct.
The appropriation request for operations is $36.2 million.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get at.
Yes.
Thanks, Diane.
Yeah.
Now, having said that,
Okay, I see, yep.
to dovetail on that very question, when are we going to make this request of the town? Because if they say no on the capital side,
Yep.
Yeah, we have.
and it's a mandatory expense, I don't want us to be stuck flat-footed with an appropriation that can't fund
Yeah.
what we have to pay for.
Yeah, our plan, the superintendent and I's plan is to present a capital request as well for FY '27, and within that capital request, that would be priority number one. Because when we last went in front of the council, as you may remember, is they told us to come back with a couple spring requests, and I would include that in the spring requests around March.
Okay, let's make sure that they are on the same page as us.
Correct, we need to, similar to what I did last year. Yeah, we can't, we definitely can't go past June 1st without an answer on
No, I'm
this.
talking about with the intention to go to the council in March with a capital request that is tied in to this preliminary budget request.
Right.
Yep,
You know, because we can't let it get, oh, well, we'll deal with that in September, we promise. No.
no, we need it accepted, similar to what they did last year. They accepted it early before the total appropriation.
Okay,
Yep.
okay.
Nope, I'm in agreement. We need
It-
an answer well
We can't take
before.
chances like,
Correct.
like
no.
that, you know.
That was like last year, if you remember. They accepted it prior to giving us our appropriation.
Okay.
Yep.
Because otherwise, the appropriation, if they say no to the
It's gonna
capital,
change.
the appropriation
Correct.
request has to go up.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
And
It's
think-
not like these are nice to haves, right? They're
No,
mandatory.
again, this is a balanced budget request with a total appropriation between taxes and aid of 2.98%, as I'm showing on the screen. And then we need an additional,
Oh, perfect, there you go.
the additional 368,000 between those other revenue sections,
Yes.
including capital and Medicaid and tuition. Without those, we don't have a balanced budget, correct?
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you for pointing that out too, Diane. I was like, wait a minute, where's the?
Yeah, no, good question.
I do have a couple other questions on the supplies.
Okay.
In the fuel oil, you're talking about a potential increase. Increase from what, where we are today, or from,
So,
help me understand that, because obviously,
yep,
gas prices are
yep.
very low right now.
Correct.
I don't know what they'll be.
Yeah,
next
so
winter.
our oil price that we got in September was 2.75 a gallon.
Okay,
And I can tell you when I
that's
just.
not bad.
Yeah, when I filled up, I was over 3 a
Yeah,
gallon for my
me too.
personal home. So, the year before was 2.69, so I'm hoping for anything less than a 10 cent increase for next year is my goal. That's my budget. So I'm hoping for anything less than 2.85. Again, we go out to bid around August, September, so we're just, that's a general estimate.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Just wanted to understand that a little bit
Yeah,
better.
so again, if we come in and we have a $3 a gallon submission, accepted bid, then obviously I would have to find.
Where we're gonna
other
take it from?
I would have to find other funds
Yeah.
to cover that. Yeah,
Electricity,
yes.
you're coming down significantly from prior year
Yep.
actuals. Is that at all being impacted by our solar credits?
Nope, that actually has to do with the agreement. When I came on board, I renegotiated our agreement with the supplier, and we went from a 13-cent supplier rate down to a 10%,
Okay.
10 cents, 10 cents, not percent, 10 cents supplier rate, which generated about a $70,000 savings.
That's pretty darn
So,
good.
yeah, so, again, the electricity is variable, but that's the analysis we received from NRG, based on consumption from prior years. They look at the prior 3-year consumption and they give you a price.
And at this time, are we or the town receiving any solar credits?
Yes, we received solar credits from Costa, which is the same company that I believe just won the bid of the solar farm project that is ongoing or starting at the old landfill in Tiverton. So it's nice that we are partnering with them on the town side, so hopefully in the future, maybe we can utilize those solar credits that are being generated from the landfill. So,
That would be great.
but yeah, those still help. My only concern about electricity is Rhode Island Energy does fluctuate, so our supplier rate has gone down, but we still have a secondary rate and charges from Rhode Island Energy, so still something I'm keeping an eye on, electricity.
You're comfortable at 370?
I'm comfortable at 370, given what we've seen for the last 12 months.
Okay. And then lastly, the plumbing and heating supplies, going back to, you know, an ongoing comment with respect to building maintenance. You know, are we shortchanging our ability to take care of our buildings by reducing budgets?
Yeah, so this is strictly everything that's in-house, and as you can see from the last few years, FY '23 was quite high, it doubled for some reason. I don't have the answer off the top of my head right now, but based on FY '24, '25, and the trend of '26, that number, I'm confident in that number.
Okay.
But the reason it's going down is because this school year, we had a project, just trying to see, we had, again, when we were building this budget, we had the flush valves project in there for $6,000 that the council was graciously enough to accept as capital. But to your earlier point, when I was building the budget, I wanted to make sure we had that coverage to fix the toilets.
Okay. That was all I had.
So the more fluctuating accounts are these 5-4 accounts on the prior page where you do all the repair and maintenance. Those are the ones where you're.
Correct, that's all the
Yeah,
vendor
okay.
type accounts, and then
Yep.
the supplies are the in-house stuff.
Gotcha.
We personally get the custodial staff,
Gotcha.
yeah. Yep.
Brendan, why do we get a solar credit? How much is it, and where does it show?
That's a good question.
Thank you.
So, solar credits are credits to your electrical bill. So, one month we might get a bill of $2,000, another month we might get a bill of 0. So they're all part of your Rhode Island Energy bill. So we have I don't know if you're familiar with solar credits, but I'll give it as a public overview. So, a solar credit is different than having solar panels on your roof, if you would. Solar credits have to do with, you go into agreement with a company and they own X amount of solar farms, and those solar farms have solar panels on them, and they provide credits to your electric bill. You pay them a certain rate, but the savings are on your electric bill. So even though you're paying them $500, they're taking off $1,000 on your electric bill, so you're saving in solar credits that way. So I have it in my own home in Tiverton, and I save probably 15 to 20% annually from the solar credits. So it's treated the same way. What's nice is when if the town council proceeds with the solar project at the dump, the landfill, it's good that we utilize the same company, because now those solar credits are closer to home, so we might be able to generate us more savings. May not, but it's a good community impact where you kind of, when that occurs, we would kind of go down that line and say, hey, how can you help us at the school here, So that's all on that one line, Kim, 56215, but it's just credit to the Rhode Island Energy bills. So that's why it's kind of tough to, that's why you kind of have to use trends with electricity, because one month I'm seeing $0, next month I'm seeing 10,000, you know what I mean? So you have to kind of see that one over 12 months.
And Kim, these solar credits came up before Brandon's time
Correct.
here as well. The school committee signed a contract with Corsage,
Yeah.
I'm saying probably at least 5 years ago now.
Yeah.
But it was a very long-term deal. These solar farms are in South County in Rhode Island?
Smithfield area and that
Oh,
area.
well,
yeah.
okay, at the
Yeah.
time it was
There's
South
quite a
County.
few, there's 7 of them, but
Yeah.
I just know, we've been getting a lot of credits from Smithfield.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. But this is something that we entered into an agreement with that company years
Yeah.
ago now.
Yeah.
And we're just waiting, it took quite some time for them to actually get up and running.
Yeah.
But if we are realizing those credits now, that's a good thing.
Yeah, same thing, my last company, we did the same thing, there was 9 different sites, And it just all depends what site you get the credits from, but to Diane's point, there's 7 different sites. I only know what site we get the credits from, because when you get their invoice, they tell you, so, so,
And you're like, oh, cool.
yeah, so.
So did they, do you know how they determine what rate you're going to get, if any?
It's all in a formula that they provide per the contract. I would have to revisit the mathematics of it.
Okay, just curious.
But yeah, there's it's kind of all within a formula, and you get, it all depends, it goes off consumption. So it goes off your kilowatts, your kWhs, so that's one, so you might get, if you have more consumption, you're gonna get a bigger credit, but your consumption's higher, so it's just, you know what I mean, so, yeah.
Thank you.
So there's no really, not necessarily a balance to check, because they're giving you an invoice, and then you're seeing your bill get decreased. Honestly, it's nice, because like my bill at home, like I said, I have solar credits at home, I always have a bill to pay, where the school has several 0 bills, and then they have higher bills next month, so, yeah, so. It all depends too, is they have a lot of problems with the Rhode Island Energy, where one month they might not, have a connection with them, and then they catch up with you in 2 months, you know what I mean? So that's happened quite often.
Thanks.
Unfortunately, it's also happened to a number of consumers since it's
Correct.
gone to
It
Rhode Island
happens
Energy.
often, yeah. And they keep you up to date, like this year, I think for the first 6 months this year, we had that issue, and now I'm starting to see a lot of 0 balance electricity bills. So that's why I say it's tough to kind of see this variable cost.
All right. Anything else on the supplies? All right. Guess we're ready to move property and other.
Yeah, so this one's pretty straightforward, very low cost in these 2 areas, property and other. So starting with property, I'll do both at the same time, but property, equipment 57305, this is essentially, has to do with equipment that we might need for the special education students, such as harnesses or different type of technology equipment we might need, et cetera, et cetera. Technology-related software and tech software, Danny Andrade went over these budgets. So you see a small increase in tech software. Sewer systems, this is just a flat fee. This continues to be the same fee we receive. It's always around $4,500, $4,600. This year was $4,545, so we're right in line. This has to do with the maintenance, the semi-annual maintenance of the sewer system here at the high school in the back of the administration office. Professional organization fees, this is decreasing a little bit. The prior superintendent was part of an organization. The current superintendent decided not to rejoin that organization, so we're seeing a little savings due to that. So kudos to Mr. Haskins. And then other dues is simply just a 3% increase for partial increases. So you can see a small decrease in other of $1,289. I apologize, I didn't mention the decrease in property of $1,940. So again, these are just small, very small numbers in a $36 million budget, but they are showing a short decrease year over year. Any questions?
57305, the equipment for special ed, why isn't that not like in a special ed section?
So what do you mean by special ed section?
You said, well, back
So-
up here, there seems to be a lot of special ed expenses.
Yeah, so this has to do with different equipment for specialized classrooms and stuff like that. However, the general budget is for all areas, all locations. Special ed's a location, but this would be for all locations. So it's still, I don't know if you're referring to the special ed that's part of general supplies and materials, perhaps, Kim. But again, that's all part of one location. I think you're referring to UCOA mapping, but this is just the total budget, not necessarily broken out by UCOA mapping, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, but similar to what we did in FY '26, this was specifically to special education needs such as classrooms and et cetera.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, that takes us to the end of that portion of our discussion. Brenda, did you want to finish going through the rest of these slides?
Sure, yeah. So I give you a little breakdown, similar to what I did last year, but this is my, I'll call it my personal breakdown. So it doesn't break it down by the high-level hierarchies you saw in the presentation, but really breaks it down from the key categories we have in our budget and specifically to the Tiverton School Department. So as you can see, personnel services are 70.4%. Starting on the left side, your left side, special education services and transportation. This all has to do with the special education, out-of-district placements and transportation of that with those individuals, so that's almost 5% of our budget. The next line is the out-of-district placement, out-of-district tuition, which is 12% of the budget. Technology and textbooks, 2.19% of the budget. Transportation, this is the regular transportation, athletics, late buses, et cetera, is almost 6%. Property and liability insurance, almost 1%. Utilities, a little over 2%. Maintenance, repairs, and supplies, under 1%. Outside services and instructional supplies, 1.18%, and other is 0.2%. So the story I'm trying to tell here is, as you can see, there's not much movement outside of our fixed and contractual obligated costs. There's very, less than 5% outside of those costs that are contractually obligated or fixed within a budget or legally mandated to provide to students. Any questions on this slide before I go to the next?
I'm just curious. How does this 70.4% compare to the FY '26 budget?
I think it's about, let me go look. It went down about 5%.
That's what I had a feeling you were going to say.
Yep.
But it shows to me what is a fairly troubling trend. Because obviously the people we employ to service the children of Tiverton in our schools are not only our biggest expense, but our biggest asset. And what this is saying is that, and it's not that they aren't getting paid as much, that's not the issue, it's that we have less of them and our expenses in other areas continue to grow, i.e. out-of-district placements, transportation, et cetera. And I think it's just a sign of an issue that we, as a school committee, eventually are going to have to start talking about seriously. Not only in light of the budget, but in light of just the stability of our schools.
So just to recap, I mentioned quite a few of these challenges and assumptions on the January 31st meeting, but purposely added towards the end because obviously 2 weeks have gone by and I just want to reiterate some of these challenges and assumptions part of this FY '27 budget. So as we all know, starting with the challenges, revenue levels fixed by adopted tax rate and current funding decisions. So to the earlier conversation is right now we're requesting a tax rate, obviously. That could change. State aid, education aid could change. It usually doesn't, but there is potential it could change at the state level. So this is very early on in the process. Our fixed cost increases, as you saw, generally have to do with benefits, salary and benefits, utilities, transportation, insurance, and contractual obligations. Staffing levels were already reduced by 20 positions last fiscal year. We are operating without several essential staff roles, including library media specialists at the high school and middle school, a data manager, part-time teacher assistants in kindergarten. That would make kindergarten teacher assistants full-time again. Right now, they're operating at a part-time hourly school day. Custodial staff, as we spoke about, and there's many others that I haven't mentioned in this slide. Limited flexibility to absorb additional cost increases without further service reductions. So again, we're early in this process. We're still waiting for benefit increases such as medical benefit increases, liability insurance, and other areas that I've addressed throughout this process, possibly increase in maintenance and repairs as we discussed this evening. So we have limited flexibility to absorb those additional costs, and to Deb's earlier point, it would come through a net effect or a service reduction in another area, unfortunately. So again, operating assumptions, the budget methodology was used doing essentially a zero-based budgeting approach when possible. Obviously, there are times that use a trend. Health, dental, and life insurance increased 7% on average. Again, we don't have any of those rates for next year at this point in time, so that could change. Pension increase is early in the process. We were provided a starting point, but what I've seen over the last 2 years, those pension numbers have changed in the May, June timeframe. So I would anticipate a change. Enrollment, we're considering enrollment declining slightly, as we've seen historically over the last, 10 plus years. Operating assumption would be Medicaid reimbursements remain consistent with prior year collections. As I spoke about, what I'm seeing at the federal level is Rhode Island could potentially lose about 13% over a 3 or 5 year period. But the Medicaid reimbursement that I'm proposing that we utilize, we would still be consistent with prior year collections for FY27. We do have the mandated middle school history and high school science curriculum changes that I spoke about quite a few times. We are planning for a slight reduction in certain entitlement grants. This would be Title I, Title II, IDA Part B, etc. However, I did receive yesterday a General Assembly request to hopefully limit reductions in entitlement grants such as CT, Title I, etc. But I don't know if that makes it out of committee or not at the Senate side of things. We do incorporate assumptions related to Council 94 contract negotiations. As you all know, we entered into a 1-year contract that would end at the end of the school year. So we did incorporate some assumptions related to that. Special education services estimate rates, they actually just came in this week. So where the team here is reviewing the RFP outcomes and proceeding with those rates increases and eventually getting to what services need to be provided next year for a budgetary standpoint. ODP tuition reduction, again, we reduced ODP tuition for out-of-district placement by $100,000 to achieve a balanced budget. As Superintendent Haskins said at the last meeting, we're hoping to utilize that net reduction by bringing in several students from an out-of-district placement. Any questions on that slide before I go to kind of the final 2 slides?
So just to clarify that, $100,000,
Yep.
had it not been for that, then our increase would have been, instead of $105,000, it would have, 100,000, it would have been 200,000.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Brendan, you've got that $100,000. Did a student come back to the district?
Nope. Right now, we're just reducing, the assumption is we're reducing out-of-district tuition. However, we're not finalized with that right now. It's early in the process. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring back several students to the district, as Superintendent Haskins said last meeting. So there's a program we're hoping to bring back in-house. That would result in hiring 2 to 3 staff members, but the bringing them back in-house would be a savings of $100,000 because we're paying tuition to that program currently, including transportation, but.
But do you know for sure you're going to be able to bring them back? I mean, there's reasons why they're out-of-district placed.
We're unable to discuss that level of specific in a public meeting, but generally speaking, we do have the capacity currently in our district for a number of students who are in an out-of-district placement, and it would be something like a $500,000 gross savings and a net savings because of the staff we would need to hire for the program of about $100,000.
So this is similar to reducing a bus. We're pretty confident at this standpoint we can do it, but we haven't got to that final level yet. So that's what I mean by a moving target of the budget this early in the process.
Okay, I'm just curious,
Yeah.
because,
But
So if we wanted more specific information about that, could we do that in executive session? I don't know what we're allowed to, because I don't even know that the school committee can,
I do not believe we have an exception
I was going to say.
for
yeah,
that type of discussion.
Yeah. And certainly not tonight, but I don't even know that we've ever been allowed to do that even as a board.
yeah, because you're not, I know Sarah can
It's the FERPA.
echo
it's
me.
the-
Yeah, and plus you're not
exactly.
talking
Like,
about.
you can talk general, but you
Yeah.
can't talk specific programs.
That's
specific.
true. The number of students is too small where there might
Yeah,
be personally
that's what I thought.
identifiable.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
they're not over that group number.
Thanks, Chris.
Go ahead.
What we can do, though, perhaps, is discuss how the program would be created and what supports and services would be part of that program. It's like a specialized program. You've seen descriptions of our specialized programs, so we can do something like that.
Brendan, the pension increase and the health, the dental, and life insurance, do you know when those rates will be available?
The trust usually sends them around February. However, life insurance, we don't renew to November. So I get that very late in the year, well after the budget. So right now, the life insurance would remain an assumption till September, October. So we would enter the budget with that assumption. Health and dental, again, usually comes around the mid to end of February, so I'm hoping to receive it maybe next week or the following week. Pension is listed online right now. However, in the last 2 years, it has changed all the way through June, multiple times, yeah. This is ERSRI rates for certified and non-certified staff, so. Last year it changed, both numbers changed around the end of May, beginning of June timeframe. So, and they increased, didn't decrease, so they're going the wrong way.
And I did want to, you mentioned full-time kindergarten teacher assistants. They're really 2 part-times. So
Correct.
it's not like they're getting benefits or anything. It's just 2 part-time.
Correct, that would be the.
Positions per
Yeah,
one
that would be.
kindergarten.
That would be essential staff that we would hope to cover if we say the committee decided to, cut a position. I would argue that we really shouldn't be cutting that position. We might want to reallocate that money to another position that's needed. Because we're really at the point where we've kind of reduced the staff where we need to bring back more staff, essential staff that we've cut, but we just don't have the means to do that in this current budget.
I just want to mention it wasn't a full-time with
Yeah,
benefits
that's what I said.
position.
Right now, they're working 3.5 hours, and obviously a school day is 6.5, 7 hours. So it would be to bring back another 3.5-hour person for that kindergarten class.
And then staffing levels, the staffing levels already reduced by 20 positions last fiscal year. Mr. Haskins, you mentioned, I think, 5 or 6 of them. There's more than that? When you said the Tiverton High School math specialist, reading specialist, 2 library personnel.
We had layoffs system-wide last year, and we went through all of that detail.
Yes, the positions that I mentioned were part of the 20 positions that were laid off that I would consider to be essential.
Okay.
That these were positions that were eliminated, but not necessarily as a result of less need due to enrollment.
Yeah, for instance, obviously, we reduced a 4-barn secretary. We wouldn't recommend bringing that one back out of the 20, you know? There's no need. But we did reduce many teaching positions, reduction of teacher assistants, part-time clerks, custodians, two custodians at Fort Barton, a nurse, a part-time nurse, a 0.5 nurse, a secretary, and obviously a Fort Barton principal last year to equal to 20. Yep.
Thank you.
You don't necessarily have to do it now. We can go through the rest of your slides, but I do want to do a top level, just you handed out enrollment tonight.
Yep.
So if I can wait until after you're done, I just want to do just a high level, where's that going?
Yep. I'll just complete.
Up to you and you, how you
Yeah, I
wanna
have
do
one
that.
slide left, so I'll just
Okay.
complete
Yep.
that, and then we can, I plan to jump to those other documents
Okay.
that were requested and provided tonight. So next step, as you know, we have to, this school committee has to review and consider approval of this budget by March 19th to the town administrator. After that point, the town administrator would distribute to the budget committee and the town council, given there is a budget committee this year. Approval sustains current operations and compliance at existing staffing levels, as we just talked about in detail again. FY '27 budget reflects prior reductions, including staff and adjustments. Any reduction below the proposed budget will require additional cuts to staffing, program, or services. Not on the slide, it is on the slide, but the supplemental documentation, as we reviewed last meeting, I provided salary and stipends. We'll get to it in a few minutes. We also provided enrollment, state aid overview, and there was one other document that we'll get to in a second once I go through my packet here. So you do have some supplementary documentation provided last meeting and then additionally to this meeting.
When's our mandatory notice date?
March 19th,
So we have 2 more meetings.
correct.
Well, that's
After
town
tonight.
council. When's our mandatory layoff date?
June
Again?
1st,
June 1st.
yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't know that's what you were asking.
Yeah, that's okay. That's why I asked it again.
So, you don't have this in front of you, but I did some, before I just end there, I did some, just looking at our tax rate, what the impact would be on this request. And given, again, there's many variables to the impact of a tax impact or a tax rate. But what we're seeing is approximately 25 cents per 1,000 of assessed value, almost like a 2.3% increase. Again, there's some variables to that, so.
Say that again, 25 cents?
25 cents per 8,000 of assessed value.
1,000 of assessed.
And because townwide impacts, where we have property value of approximately $4.2 billion. So this proposed increase of a little more than $1 million would be about 25 cents per 1,000 of assessed value. And if we use an estimated annual cost on a house that's $350,000, that would be a $7 monthly increase or $88 annually. A $500,000 assessed home value would be about $10 a month or $125 annual increase. Again, this measured increase is just slightly below the town's typical annual tax growth and translates about $7 to $10 a month in an average home in Tiverton being around $350 to $500. But
And that's the 2.98% is what you're
correct.
using.
Yep,
Okay.
exactly, yep. But obviously a lot impacts that tax rate, so. So before we get into, any other before we get into the next topic, any other questions or any additional detail requests needed at this point?
I don't have any of the budget itself.
What is it?
I
Sorry.
don't have any of the budget itself. I'm looking forward to getting into some of the other pieces. that
Brendan,
impact what the budget will be.
Okay. Yes.
I had a note, and I don't know what it means, so maybe you can tell me. It
Okay.
says HBA agreement presentation for 15K.
Yes, we were gonna do that next meeting on the 24th.
Okay.
Because that would be agreement you have to approve. But that has to do with the medical telehealth type service that would
Okay,
would
perfect.
show an
Thank you.
ROI in medical.
February
Yep.
24th.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. So,
You
hearing
ready to
nothing,
move on?
oh, go ahead, sorry. Okay. Hearing no questions, I was gonna jump to the state education aid document that I put together, a couple meetings ago and then provided this evening. It's the state aid summary, explaining the funding formula of, education state aid here in Rhode Island. I'm gonna explain it in a very high level, detail. Yes, the 3 pages you have in front of you tonight gives you more detail, but obviously, I'm gonna try to do it in about a page, but, there's a lot that goes into this funding formula. So, the summary of the state education funding formula explains, what I'm here to explain tonight is why Tiverton State Education Aid has declined under Rhode Island's education funding formula. As you know, there's multiple parts of the funding formula. You have your actual funding formula, and then you have your high-cost special education categorical area. So Tiverton continues to decrease on the funding formula side. That has to do with various reasons that I'll get into, but our high-cost special ed has increased. So we continue to see enrollment decline, but continue to see an increase in special ed, and that's why we're kind of a net effect of just losing $2,000 in state education aid in FY '27, and even FY '26. We broke even originally, and then the General Assembly gave an increase to education aid. So we got additional 62,000 late in the game, but essentially we started off the year as level, continue what we're doing now. So there's different components of the funding formula. So the change is driven by 3 interconnected factors. It's student enrollment, which they refer to as RADM, and I'll get into what RDAM means in a second. Property wealth, which they refer to as AEWAV, and the resulting state share ratio, what they refer to as SSR. And the reason, I'll get into what those abbreviations mean in a second, but the reason I say those abbreviations, because if you look on the Rhode website, they don't spell out what those abbreviations are, they just use those abbreviations in their columns when they're distributing their paperwork. So the first one is RADM, which is Resident Average Daily Membership. So what our clerks are doing every day is they're sending our enrollment. They're working hard to send our daily attendance records to the state. And that's how you generate your resident average daily membership, including sending your enrollment data on October 1st. So there's a few pieces to the resident average daily membership, but 2 of those pieces are your average daily membership attendance records and also your October 1 enrollment. October 1 enrollment does mean more than the average daily attendance. So the number of Tiverton resident students is multiplied by a per pupil foundation amount, which additional weights for student needs. So the next question that you might have is, I kind of generated some questions and to explain this at a high level. So how much does the state pay versus the local community here in Tiverton? So this is when it's determined by the state share ratio, or SSR, which estimates a community's ability to fund education locally. So the SSR is driven largely by the property wealth per the student. So that's the property wealth here in Tiverton versus the student, along with, again, income and poverty indicators here in Tiverton. The aid decline, again, the funding formula aid decline is not caused by outdated inflation assumptions, but the formula does not adequately account for inflation impact on school cost. So, as you've seen in the news, the Rhode Island David Cincellini's organization there that he is the CEO of has provided.
Rhode Island Foundation.
Rhode Island Foundation, thank you. Provided an updated funding formula, and one of the reasons for that was due to inflation impact on school costs. So just to add on that is, as property values rise and enrollment falls, the formula really shifts locally. So even though inflation makes costs harder to absorb, is what the formula does is when you have a reevaluation year is that generates higher property values, they're expecting higher local capacity, meaning the local share is increasing, or the town's share should increase for the schools rather than the state. So fewer students lowers the need by a little bit, but higher property values generate a higher local capacity. So even as salaries, utilities, transportation, special education rise with inflation, the formula does not keep up with inflation, or in that case, the property values, as we've seen in the post-COVID world. So it creates a structural mismatch, essentially, because costs rise in real dollars, state share declines in percentage terms. So even if the key point is, even if school costs increase, state aid can decline if enrollment falls or property value rises, which we've kind of seen a combination of both here in Tiverton. So the next section is the AEWAZ, standardized measure of property wealth adjusted for income. So as we all know, we had recent revaluations and market appreciation increase here in Tiverton and also many other parts of the state. So we've had higher property wealth per pupil signals greater local fiscal capacity. So as a result, the state considers the funding formula of state education aid is a smaller percentage of Tiverton's education costs. So again, with the higher property revaluations, it's showing a smaller percentage from the state level to provide to Tiverton's education costs. So enrollment decline does reduce aid, as I said, but if the official student count used for funding declines gradually over several years, the lower enrollment does reduce aid. However, it can increase the financial burden on the local community. So again, even with the enrollment decline, it's still putting constraint on the local level to increase their funding for school education. So as we saw recent outcomes for Tiverton, as we saw in state aid decline by approximately 1.1, 1.2 million, about 16% from FY24 to 25, the major decrease. Tiverton experienced the largest percentage reduction in Rhode Island that fiscal year, and that was drastically reflects the formula-driven changes, not reduction in district effort or need. So Tiverton's reduction in state aid is predictable outcome of lower enrollment, higher property values, and reduced measure. So what the state says is, even though we lost, so the state education aid, just let me back up for a second, the state education aid goes back 2 years, so 23 to 24 school year. So we lost approximately 57 students that year, but due to the revaluation and higher property values, is the state is decreasing our funding formula because they think the local level can afford it more. Now the problem I do have is, obviously we all live in Tiverton. We know our taxes really haven't increased as much because of the way the tax rate is rolling, but the state funding formula still considers the impact to the local community based on the value of homes here in Tiverton. So even though, as I mentioned, $4.2 billion was the taxable property value here in Tiverton, the tax rate obviously decreased year over year. So your tax rate is still staying relatively flat, but the state is not considering that in their state education formula. So this year, going into FY27, next school year, we lost $308,000 in the funding formula. Majority of that had to do with the property values, and also I think it was 30% had to do with the reduced students of 50. It was either 56 or 57 students. But the high-cost special ed category did increase by 300,000, so we're only losing 2,000 year over year. However, with that said, is high-cost special ed is driven by one area. It's the need of the high-cost special education students. So if we were to see a change in those students, Tiverton would have to be prepared for another drastic loss based on that, because again, the funding formula weighs on it pushes more pressure on the local level to contribute to education than it does more on than the decline in enrollment. But decline enrollment definitely has an impact, just not as greater as the property values as we've seen here and increased in Tiverton and nationwide for that matter. I know my home has probably went up 40-something% since I bought it in 2012, so. So, any, I know those.
But that value doesn't translate into you having more money to pay your bill.
Correct, yeah, I've maybe seen less than $100 increase in the last few years,
I
which
understand that.
I,
So our houses are
correct.
Our houses are appreciating, but it does,
Correct.
that, unless you sell it, does not
Yeah.
translate
So,
into.
but that's what my story is. It's 20-plus year funding formula.
Yeah.
And we've seen inflation of 50% these last 6 years, since COVID, but,
What do we think the chances are that the funding formula will actually be revisited?
Oh, good question.
I think it will be now that there's a new CFO with Rhode. So obviously, the last individual was part of the original funding formula, so it's kind of tougher to push someone it's a big project, is what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say.
Wouldn't
And-
expect it this year.
Oh,
Yeah,
no, but
no.
I'm concerned we might not get it for a few years.
Yeah, it's definitely and you just took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect it earliest, maybe FY '29, so, but.
What
I
can we
hope I'm
do
wrong.
to rally the people to
Well, I
say
think it's a
we
good
support
start.
a new formula?
Yeah, I think it's a good start that the Rhode Island Foundation did something,
Mm-hmm.
because they're obviously a big contributor here in the state of Rhode Island. It's just a matter of the General Assembly now getting behind that and studying it and understanding it, and then Rhode doing the same to roll it out.
So we should keep
I
our
haven't-
conversations with our
yeah.
reps going.
I haven't really studied the Rhode Island Foundation proposal, so I could be very wrong. Maybe it's not great. But based on what I'm hearing from counterparts, business managers, the Rhode Island leagues and cities, is they're kind of behind it because talking to Administrator Jones this morning, he was actually at the Rhode Island leagues and cities meeting, and it looks like that proposal and other proposals are trying to take away more local share and put more into the state share. I don't know if the state can fund their share, but
Right.
but it's,
That's just it.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah.
the politics of it, too.
correct.
The money has to come from somewhere.
Correct.
So it's
But-
That's why
shifting
they're
it.
proposing the 1% wealth tax.
Yes, exactly. So, I would love it as a taxpayer and a proponent, very high, I want us to succeed here in Tiverton with education, obviously, so.
I would add just two things. One, if we're talking big picture, I don't think we can expect a change in the funding formula anytime soon. But I do think we need to question our legislature on where's the revenue for gaming? When gaming was proposed in Rhode Island decades ago, it was supposed to fund public education, and it hasn't. And where is the money from cannabis? Schools have received $0 for prevention and nothing for programming. So I think there are two huge revenue sources in Rhode Island that the legislature should consider tapping for these needs. Our funding formula over relies on local property taxes, and something has to give.
Okay, thank you for that. No matter how many times we hear that particular speech with the RADM, and all those acronyms, we need to hear it annually.
Yeah,
It's,
very helpful.
it is, so thank you. You've also included a 12-year appropriations history, and I think we're at a good time to segue into that one. Would I
Yep,
be right on that?
That was my next topic, and then I was going to push over the superintendent to discuss enrollment.
Okay.
So in your packets, that was the third document I was trying to think of earlier. So I have it here on my computer as well. But the request last meeting was to provide a 10-year history. I was able to provide a 12-year history. Majority of these numbers were already generated in a document I had on my software from my predecessor. And then I just added to it for FY24 through FY27. So as we know, let me just go through it first. So as you can see in your summary, we have the first column is town appropriation. So this is the taxes of the appropriation side of from the local level. This would be the increase from FY16 all the way through the requested budget year of FY27. And then state aid. I broke out state aid between, again, the funding formula and high-cost special ed categorical. There is a little other side of the funding formula which has to do with multilingual learners, but you're talking anywhere from $0 to $5,000. So I kind of just put that into the funding formula side of things here in Tiverton. It's, again, little dollars. So that breaks out the two categories of state aid, along with the increases for state aid, and then your total tax appropriation, dollar increase, decrease over the last 12 years, and then the percent increase over the last 12 years. So just scrolling down here, as you know, FY25 is unaudited right now, but we obviously know those numbers. FY26 is what we received this budgeted year, including the $62,000 increase after the tax rate was set from the General Assembly. I think they decided that at the 12th hour on June 30th or something last year. And then I also included the current requests in FY27. So obviously the school committee could change that percentage or requests based on my presentation, or many of the variables in the budget right now. That's a moving target. But so on the last line, you can see your 12-year average. So again, that's the average cost over 12 years, including the percentages, the state aid costs over 12 years, again, including the percentage, and so on. Any specific questions that you want to discuss, or?
Yes.
I think we all do,
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
And let's start with Jocelyn.
Okay. For anyone watching, I think this is, the question I want to ask, I think, is just to inform anyone that might be watching. Can you explain maintenance of effort? Because I can see where that sort of factored in some of these
Yep.
years.
Yep. So maintenance of effort is basically an increase year over year. And please add on if I'm missing anything you're thinking of, because I know you're familiar with it. But basically is the town locally has to provide $1 more than the previous year. However, as we know from FY25, state aid could drastically decrease.
Right.
And it did. FY24 was almost $7 million, and FY25 went down to 5.8. So even though the town appropriation taxes can only increase by $1 or more, up to 4% maximum, you can go over 4%, but you would need to get a waiver through the General Assembly, similar to what Low Compton and Providence just went through last year, and I think a few other districts, or towns, I should say, and cities. So MOE is just basically on the tax appropriation side, not anything else as far as state aid to get your total tax appropriation. I hope that was the answer you looked for.
Definitely, and I really appreciate that you put this 12-year chart together, because I think it's important to recognize FY 16, 17, 18, 19, 21, how that contributed to where we are with our current budget challenges, on top of other things, the funding formula as well. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
So MOE, if I'm looking at this chart, is on which column? I want to make sure I understood what you said.
So as the first column is the tax appropriation taxes. So,
Okay, thank
yeah.
you.
So I have two things. It just to continue on the current discussion, taking all of these factors into consideration when you look at the right-hand side of the chart, which is the net impact on the school district's budget, okay, between the town appropriation and state aid, which in some years early on here was rapidly increasing and then turned around the other way due to all the factors we've discussed. But at the end of the day, the average increase in our budget for the last 12 years in total is less than 2%. And that's important to note. The other thing I do want to ask you about, because it's giving me heartburn, is the high-cost special ed categorical. Now, it is fluctuating fairly widely. And my understanding is that there is a 2-year delay, that this is in essence a reimbursement from the state for previously provided services. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay.
Sarah's team puts together a report.
Is that anything we can predict on a year-to-year basis, or even QA?
Not really. It's challenging to predict. The threshold for this changes year to year, and we're not aware of that threshold until we receive it.
Okay. What concerns me is that, you see in I'll start at FY '22, right? 120,000, FY '23, 209, FY '24, 568, or 567, right? But then in '25, it went down to 203. That's a pretty good swing on a district our size. My understanding, from what I recall from that time period, is that was Rhode pulling back some of the aid they gave us in FY '24. If I remember that correctly, with our former business manager, that's what the answer was, at least to us.
Yeah, I don't have the answer
Then
today, but
last year, 432,000, right? And now we're estimating 740,000. I'm not comfortable with accepting that at face value without some kind of questioning to Rhode to ensure that this indeed is not something they're going to turn around and cut in half on us next year because they found they made a mistake.
I
Yeah.
mean, we only can go with the number they give us.
yeah.
No, it's
yeah,
right, but I want to question it now.
yeah. So we do,
I'm questioned every single day on the
Yeah.
accuracy of what I do.
yeah, absolutely. So obviously, as Deb just said, these numbers are given to us on the RIDE website. However, the way they're calculated is done by RIDE, obviously, and we do have a little bit of the backup support through the report that Sarah does. However, I can't get too much into that report due to the confidentiality of it, because it doesn't discuss a certain group or more than 10 students.
Sure.
It's less than 10, yeah, so, however, based on the current needs of that group of students and that number I don't see them changing the number. I'm not sure what occurred in FY '25,
But that's what it's based on. But as
yeah,
far as
yeah.
the reduction,
Yeah,
then
yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the reduction, but it does go back 2 years, you are correct, yeah.
So you'll feel comfortable that this 740,000 number
Based on.
should stand?
Yeah, based
and
on
will
the
stand.
report, what the report and what we know that we provided to RIDE is correct, based on our documents that we have in the Student Service Department.
Okay.
For the upcoming fiscal year, we're confident in that figure. For future years,
I was just gonna say that,
no idea.
Chris, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
my concern is now what happens if next year it flips back to 2 or 3?
That's a direct cost to us.
And it very well could, based on what Sarah just said, is based on it all, it's kind of like a pool. You provide information, and then the money gets spread.
So, given that this 740,000 is the primary reason why our aid is flat
Correct.
this year, should we be thinking about this a little bit differently to say, we really did lose aid this year? Partially because of continued enrollment declines and partially because of values, home values.
Absolutely. This is the second year in a row, and I've been here for 2 years, is the funding formula has decreased, but the special ed has increased to make it level. Yep, absolutely.
And so as a result, and we've been through this entire budget, right? We had mass layoffs last year. We're very desperately looking to see if there are ways to bring back certain positions. And we'll get into it in the enrollment some more. The question I guess I have is, we're really running tight. We don't have any fluctuation ability to bear any unexpected expenses. So I want to make sure that ultimately the budget we present is something we can be comfortable with and not cross our fingers and hope we're not going to get hit with something. Because we did see another decline in state aid for all intents and purposes.
So are you recommending that we cut this year in anticipation of the continued decline?
No. But I am,
I mean, that would be the only way to address it, is
Well-
to say, well, we can't support a $36.23 million budget because we anticipate we're,
and part of the enrollment discussion, I'm sure we'll talk about this, but, do we have any ability to further consolidate any classes? Or does it make sense to?
I don't see that opportunity in next year's enrollment. It is impossible right now to predict kindergarten. We'll have better figures once registration portal is now open. It is live. So we included this year's numbers as a assumption for next year.
And that's usually the assumption.
Yep. And then, of course, as students rise in grades, for example, there are 54 kindergartners at Ranger School. We expect it to be 54 first graders next year. But I don't see at the elementary level where the opportunity to combine classes is there.
Okay.
We're at that enrollment, you have 31 kindergartners. Can't have a class of 31 kindergartners. Now, it makes for a small kindergarten class to have 15 or 16. Ideally, you'd be closer to 20. But 31 just can't happen. Likewise, grade 3 at Pecasset next year, we're expecting 40 third graders. Can't have a class of 40, so two classes of 20. Yep. Where there may be some opportunity is making Tiverton High School a more attractive place for children seeking CTE. We have best-in-class offerings at Tiverton High School. That's no secret. We have award-winning programs and a high-quality teaching staff. We've been advertising that to our families, and we're getting a great response on that. Similarly, when we do receive a request for an out-of-district CTE program, we request that the student and parent come tour the Tiverton program first so that they can see what we have to offer. We don't want to stand in the way of what is now a right for a student to attend any program in the state. However, we do think we have a lot to offer here, and we found that families are responding to that. So that effort, we hope to see more students returning to Tiverton. But in terms of enrollment, we do see reduced enrollment. At our last enrollment report, we had 1,422 students. We are predicting 1,411 students in Tiverton schools next year, a reduction of about 11 students.
So I guess we're into the enrollment discussion.
I thought we were leading
like
there. I
that
didn't
nice
need to pull
segue.
us there, but
Can I ask a question before we go
Yeah,
into
sure.
that? I'm looking at the kindergarten numbers right now. So you have 5 classes of kindergarten and there's 86 children.
Where are you? What are you looking at?
I'm looking at the enrollment that we received on January 13th.
That's what he was about to get into, Kim, but I think
Yeah,
you're looking.
that's good.
Well, I just, because you
Before we go to the
mentioned,
enrollment,
Yeah.
are we done, that's a good question. Are we done looking at the appropriations history? Everybody understands it? Okay.
I just wanted to say, Kim, we also provide enrollment in the package this evening, so that's what I was referring to. That's what superintendent's gonna.
I know you
get into.
mentioned like eliminating classes, and I'm like, oh, I wonder.
Yeah. But
That was
you're
why I
right
brought that
into the
up,
segue.
Okay.
So
Thanks.
for the appropriations, I just want to, Diane, to your comment, when aid reduces, that puts pressure on us to turn to the taxpayers. So that is always the challenge for us, and that's always what we're trying to communicate to our reps and our senators, that, you know, the more that state aid funding formula squeezes us, the more that, you know, it forces us, you know, to go to our taxpayers. So it's just, you know, it's a difficult, I mean, and it's not all 39 cities and towns all go through it, every charter school, you know, it's something we all go through, but it is it's difficult to predict, but I like your thought, Diane, and I know we've talked about this, the treasurer and I, for many years, and we haven't done it, is doing forecasting. Is okay, we FY 27, but let's forecast 28, 29, 30. But that's a different discussion, but I'd love to see us, in some capacity as a town, start trying to do some forecasting.
Yeah, we've discussed that because the Division of Finance has changed their reporting based on, we'll call it, the end of COVID, you know. So they've gone back to the pre-COVID world, which is a 5-year forecast. So I would love to do kind of a joint workshop, because I personally think, talking with the treasurer, I personally think her and I guesstimating a 5-year forecast is not reality for the state of Rhode Island. And I think we should have at least a subcommittee at you know, doesn't need to be the whole town council school committee. but at
Well,
least-
honestly, this is exactly what I've been trying to
Yeah,
propose for
yeah,
2 years now.
yeah. Because again, we do our job, get our reports done to satisfy deadlines. But, you know, it would be nice to marry those two together with the oversight bodies involved.
Thank you. All right, so now can we turn to enrollment? All right, now, Kim, you are asking about something that was given to us last week, is that?
Or is it what's in our packet?
Yeah. So both, it comes on a monthly enrollment report, and then in your packet this evening that I left on your table here is the superintendent put together a forecasted enrollment that we're utilizing for our budget preparation of FY 27. So either report kind of shows, but Kim, the only suggestion I was going to say is the superintendent's, not to speak for the superintendent, but his projection report is those kindergartners are now in first grade on that packet. So that's why I think we just got to just make that clear of what, I know what you're asking, but for everyone else, you know what I mean? So she's asking about the current kindergarten enrollment.
Which are first graders next year.
Which are first graders next year.
Which he's showing as first graders.
Correct, yeah. But I think the enrollment she's referring to is from the January meeting, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so.
I was just wondering why 86 kindergarten students are in split among 5 classes. Like, 2 classes have 15 students each. And then another has 18, another has 19, and another has 19.
But is that a report we're looking at this evening, or just you? Because I'm having a hard time following this. Is it something we all have to look at?
I don't know,
tonight?
did you bring yours?
It's not, I mean, that particular report is not what we're here to discuss tonight, I guess is the point. And
I see what
they're
you're
valuable
saying.
questions, but we don't have that tonight. It was something we discussed a month ago.
I think you do have the
was gonna
enrollment.
Do we have it?
Yeah, Jocelyn has it right in front of her.
If you go to the next page,
That's the one for tonight.
That's
So-
just the,
she's referring to per class, but if you look at the one tonight, I don't
This is
have it.
perspective. This is the estimate.
Well,
The-
yeah, but I
correct,
think,
the forecast.
Isn't the point relevant if you just flip a page? You can see the same thing.
I was
But these
gonna-
are old.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are 24, 25.
I don't have a copy in front of me, that's why I'm referring to the superintendent, but.
I can put the November 2025 enrollment, I can try to put that on the screen, if that's helpful.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Diane, I just mentioned it because you said, is there anywhere classes can be cut?
Right.
And I'm looking at, well, kindergarten, which is going to be going into first grade, yeah, that probably could cut a class. That's why I
But
brought
the
it up.
question is, and because we don't have the report, are those in one school or across both schools?
I told you, there was 15 in one class in Pecasset, 15 in another class in Pecasset.
So are you suggesting that, what, they could be combined to a third?
I think they could be, I could think those 86 students could be in 4 classrooms instead of 5.
But the issue is, some of them are at Ranger, some of them are at Pecasset.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to take that into you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I, like, if,
So 2 at
Just-
Pecasset, 2 at Ranger. Right?
yeah, you could do that. It's just something that I'm,
No, it's a valuable discussion. It's just that we just don't have that data in front of us tonight.
So we'll see if Chris. I mean, because that's, even looking at the 24, 25 stuff that was in the packet, I had this similar questions. But,
But all of that was pre,
oh, that's all old.
yeah, it is. It's all very dated and really not something we can hang our hats on now. Sure, what would you like to know?
But, I was gonna say, I mean, I guess we could continue the enrollment discussion until.
Well, I think he's pulling it up now, so, yes, Dave?
I think she has a valid, Dave Perry, Ramble Way. I think she has a valid point.
She does. But we
you
just didn't
said-
have any of the
But you're saying
information.
we're going to move kids here and there. You just moved the whole 4th grade to one school.
Mr. Perry, have some respect for us, please.
I do, but I'm just telling you what you did.
We will look at it with the data in front of us and make,
Correct.
Rational
So let her look at her
decisions.
data and follow along.
the problem
But
is
you
we
just
didn't
moved-
have
you-
it, Mr. Perry.
You just moved the whole 4th grade.
Yes, we did.
Right, okay, so what's the big deal of moving a couple of kids?
The problem is only that we can't see it, it's not,
We just didn't have it in front of us.
don't have it in front of us.
You can't have one member referencing a report that the rest of us didn't have. And now we do. Thank you. I can't either. Can you put it a little bigger? That's better, thank you. So Kim,
what one is that?
is that
Yeah,
what?
it's-
What one
you're
is
looking
that?
at?
That's the December enrollment report, but that's actual November enrollment. And so I think, Ms. Paquette, what you're referring to is kindergarten, so that particular
15,
row,
15, that row.
Yes.
there are 15,
Does that match what you have?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
15
So,
students in
ask your
each
question
kindergarten
now.
classroom.
I'm just looking at the amount of students that are in kindergarten.
85 total.
Correct. In 5 classes. Some of these classes, 15 students.
3 at Ranger School, 2 at Pecasset, and it's based upon where these children live.
So the only way we could reduce a class, and it's possible, is to move children from Ranger to Pecasset.
That's correct.
But then when you look at first grade, those classes have more in them at Pecasset than they have at Ranger. It's kind of a
Yeah.
balancing act.
Yeah, I get that, but if we're looking at ways to reduce expenses.
And one of the premises of the Fort Barton consolidation was that all of the Fort Barton children, at least for the beginning, would be moved to Ranger and not to Pecasset. They were all moved together. There was not a redistricting done last year.
Correct.
So if we wanted to take Kim's example of 85 kindergarten students who will be in first grade next year, yes, you could say, all right, we could go with, instead of 5 sections, 4 sections, is that what you would be talking about? And that would be 20-something each. But it would require redistricting and movement of children from one school to another. Some children, but not all. Is that what, and that's where we have to decide, is that something we want to pursue? I personally do not at this time, but others may feel otherwise.
Brendan, just to confirm, that total is 85 for that row? For
Yes.
kindergarten? Okay, so that would be about 21 kids per classroom if we reduced
That's
it.
what I was trying to do the math.
Yeah, so if we
21 or
reduced,
22 per class if you had 4 kindergarten classrooms.
if we had 4 kindergarten classrooms,
Yep.
okay.
And taking it a little further, right, the next grade's at 101, you have to keep it at 5. There's no ability with the teacher's contract to go to 4 there.
That's correct, right. The contract allows up to 22 students in kindergarten, and I believe it's, let me pull it up, I believe it's 23 in other grades.
So that would be the only place where we could, I'm just looking at the rest of them.
It seems a little,
What about second? I can't.
yeah, second grade looks.
So kindergarten in grade 1 is limited to 23 students. All other classes are limited to 25
you.
students.
Brandon?
Yes,
much
that's better, thank you.
Thank you. Now, these are current, so the 85, that's next year's first graders. Yes?
Yes.
And how much, if you're assuming 85 kindergartners, what did you say is the max class?
23 for K and 1.
Although for K and 1, I know in general, just having, teachers don't like to go that high for the young ones, the littles.
It is a challenge.
It's a challenge.
It's easier with aides.
How many aides do we have in those now? Half?
We have a half-time or a 3-hour teacher assistant in each kindergarten classroom.
That's it, so just part of the day.
That's right.
What's the contractual number for, is that second grade currently, 88 total
25 students per class
for second grade?
for second grade.
So
that would be 22 potentially if that was consolidated.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so if we did that math, that would be, so you could potentially consolidate kindergarten, a first grade, and a second grade, but it would require redistricting.
And let's say in one of the buildings,
Yeah,
your
that's
classrooms are
the
at
point.
max per the contract.
Right, yeah.
If a new child was enrolled, they would have to basically go where there was an open space,
That's correct.
which could be out of their district, not district, but,
Yes, if in the older, I say older, but if in the, for example, second and third grade, third grade elementary classrooms at the Pecasset School, if those students are moved to Ranger and the class is full at Ranger, a student who enrolls who moves into the Ranger neighborhood would have to go to Pecasset. That's correct,
Because of the cap.
because of the
yeah,
cap.
per the contract.
But in looking at the second grade at Ranger, you have 48 total?
Second grade there, that's 88.
No, just
No,
Ranger,
Oh, I'm
just
sorry, just Ranger, yep.
right? 48 total,
Blow that up again.
which
Yeah.
could,
We're struggling over here,
From all,
please.
that's okay, just blow it
Yeah.
up. We kind of know, there
There,
we go.
that's
Okay.
perfect, don't
see
change
the
it from that.
16, 16, 16, right? That's currently
Yeah.
grade 2 at Ranger.
So you could do 8 and 8, you could just
You-
make Ranger bigger.
You could, right, if you did, you could consolidate 24
Yeah.
and 24 into 2 third-grade classrooms next year. The
Yes.
question is, that puts you right at the cap per the teacher's contract. And if we have any new students come in, now you're struggling as to where to put them.
They'd have to go to Picasset.
And is that the right thing to do? Is the question. And how far do we want to push this toward the maximums for the sake of money when it concerns the value of smaller classrooms?
Although that does assume enrollment, same as what we're looking at, when we already know enrollment's going down 11.
Well,
It goes
a lot
down
of that
more.
is, I'm assuming a lot of that's going to be at the upper grades. Is that,
Do we-
this enrollment projection, is that the upper grades you're assuming are
We've
going
got-
down, or is it throughout?
Ranger to 11, what do you have there? I'd have to add it up.
So comparing this year's enrollment to next year's enrollment, we see a decrease in most schools, a decrease at the Ranger School from currently 226 to 211, a decrease at the Picasset School from this year 188 to next year 177, an increase at the high school from 404 to 443 students based on the large number of eighth graders currently enrolled, and a decrease at Tiverton Middle School from 595 to 571.
Primarily because of that
Net,
big class
that's
moving up.
11.
That's right.
Net, that's an 11 student? Is that what you said?
At the middle school?
Net, just all of the grades together, that's
Oh,
11, right?
all of the grades, a net of 11 students, correct.
So I'm concerned we're getting a little bit in the weeds here right now, because we haven't really taken an overall, like a higher level overview of all of the enrollment in every grade. And Kim, I appreciate what you're saying, because you're thinking like, okay, how can we do it within this? But is there any opportunity at the middle school or at the high school? Not that I want consolidation anywhere, it's the last thing I want, but I get what you're asking.
Well, I think it's something we have to look at.
Right. So maybe we step back, get the whole overview, and then dive into it? Does that make sense?
Sure.
And then maybe there's other opportunity that doesn't impact elementary? I don't know. This is a big discussion, but I get what you're saying.
So to continue briefly with the kindergarten
Yes.
consolidation, we will take a close look at kindergarten enrollment numbers over the course of the spring. But there is a big caveat there. We received a large number of kindergarten registrations in the summer, in July and August. In fact, Assistant Superintendent Krieger, you gave me a figure recently about the number of over the summer, but it was a pretty large number of students who registered in August for kindergarten this year. So that's going to be hard to predict. Now, we are continuing with our outreach efforts to get the word out to all of our preschools through Child Find and the information we get through KidsLink. However, will still be a large number who we can anticipate will register right before school begins.
And these projected numbers, how did you come up with those? Through Child Find and Kids Count?
Well, no, for next year's projected kindergarten,
For these numbers?
yeah.
Yeah, all of them.
For kindergarten in particular, we took this year's numbers. We have no way right now to predict what it's going to be, so we just assumed it would be the same as this year's enrollment.
Okay.
And that, obviously, as we get more information, we'll change that. And then for the other grade levels, we just move the cohorts up.
Okay.
Even at the high school?
Even at the high school. Yep. And we did account for some ninth grade out-of-district CTE, fewer, but still some.
Because it's typically the middle to high that we start to see a lot of Tiverton students start to look at private schooling. So we just moved the cohort.
We did.
I guess to your point, it is a larger discussion, but to Diane's point, that when we start getting up to the cap, it doesn't allow us any wiggle room. Yeah.
Now, there may be some opportunity at the secondary levels. However, analyzing a high school course schedule is a lengthy process. We are not in a position right now to consolidate any program at the high school because we just don't have an on-ramp that's long enough to do that. But we should start discussions as we see continuing declines in state aid, discussing if there is any opportunity for consolidating classes at the high school. Can a high school of just over 400 continue to offer 19 advanced placement courses
Yeah.
and 7 CTE programs? It is a wonderful opportunity for the town of Tiverton to have this offering in the high school. But if we continue to lose large numbers of students to other districts, it may not be an opportunity we can afford. But we are not in a position to make any changes for next year.
Well, I'm thankful for that because it's a balancing act because we're also trying to draw kids in. And so if we made those cuts now, we would be shooting ourselves in the foot, really. I mean, the CTE is such a draw. The AP courses are a draw. I mean, there's so much advantage to that, so I'm glad we can't change this year.
Yeah, and to be clear, it would not be a recommendation. It would only be an option out of necessity.
Yeah.
Now, is the state giving a kickback for CTE?
No.
There wasn't any-
We do receive a little bit of money in Perkins that helps to fund some of the programming, but it is not substantial compared to what the tuition is for sending a student to a program. Do you have that figure, our current Perkins allocation?
So we basically just, they pay us, we pay them. It's really not.
It's a wash.
It's a wash.
Well, I actually think there's more money going out than coming in for CTE.
Absolutely. I think,
We're getting almost $72,000 between Perkins and categorical.
In our out-of-district
In our
CTE cost.
In our district, CTE costs is in the millions, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that while the CTE programs have been a wonderful opportunity for students to explore some of the options that are out there for them and to, open up their minds to things that perhaps they wouldn't have ordinarily considered. What it has done, it has resulted in competition for students. And one can say, well, competition's good, it makes you up your game. Might be true. I think that educationally, here in Tiverton, our education is as solid as anywhere else, and that includes our neighbors. Our issue is we don't have nice, shiny things to get people to come here. We don't have the latest and greatest in athletic fields. We don't have the latest and greatest in facilities, and certainly not in the robustness of some programs for districts that have seemingly unending appetites to spend. So it's where we are. It's a discussion. Tonight won't be the last time we talk about it. We need to continue to try to be advocates for our school district, for our high school, and to, make sure that the people who live here in Tiverton understand the importance of having that here. That's about all we can do.
So could we get this as FY 25, 26 enrollment so that we could be pairing totals to totals? And then, just this backup is great, this kind of thing, just in a package?
Yes.
Because like Diane said, this is really, that's so outdated, that doesn't help at all.
It was helpful last year, but not now.
That's correct. So you've been provided a monthly report for 24, 25 school year, but not the annual report similar to what's been provided for our budget projection. Additionally, you were not provided the FY25 comparison, so, FY26 comparison, so.
Yeah, because FY '25 is really gone, so it's really looking at current enrollment versus our projected enrollment.
We certainly can provide that.
Thank you.
Because that, like, comparing this to a summary of where we are now, and then this kind of detail, I think, is going to be very helpful as far as having this larger discussion of where do we think we consolidate, does it make sense? And certainly, I mean, certainly we're talking about dollars and cents, and we understand that, but we also understand there's an educational component to it. So please, challenge, come back with that, because it's we're talking about young children, we're talking about, 6 through 18, these are, so go ahead and challenge that, but at the same time, our job is to try to, look for savings where we can too.
Thank you. I think that when you're looking at class sizes of 15, that does seem low. Of course, that's for a kindergarten classroom. If we were looking at, third grade classrooms of 15, then.
Like we were last
I
year.
was going to say, that's what we had at Fort Barton.
And even lower,
Yeah.
from what I understand.
It was.
Yeah.
For
Classrooms of-
kindergarten, it's good.
Classrooms of 12 or 14 are just not efficient. You just can't afford to run them. I think the 16, we do have some classes at 16 right now, second grade, at the Ranger School. Those are low. They're just not low enough to combine them.
No.
So if they were at 12 or 14, we might be able to combine some classes, but at 16, it's just that number where
You're
It's-
tying your own hands.
it's too high to combine. And then, of course, the reality of sending students to different elementary schools than what they have been going to, it's very disruptive. And so there would be an educational concern from that point of view if you have, for example, a student who went to the Ranger School for kindergarten, first grade, and second grade, now going to the Pecasset School for the third grade, and then the Westerly Middle School for the fourth grade program. That would be very disruptive, so not something I would recommend. Excuse me.
We can't
No,
afford that
it's-
I'm not
transportation.
sending them there.
Gosh, I just went back 15 years. I don't think I've worked there in 15 years. You can tell it's past 8 p.m. I'm starting to.
Okay.
Yeah, in addition to siblings, that's another consideration, is you don't want siblings at two different elementary schools.
Now, to this point, though, last year, right, we did make the decision that all of the former Fort Barton children would go to Ranger, right, for K through 3. From that point on, do we have a redistricting happening so that more students, that we're not going to leave Pecasset underpopulated? How's that working? And I don't
Well-
want to put you on the spot if you don't have the information, just high level.
Well, currently Pecasset has healthy numbers in, with the exception of that kindergarten. Their first, second grade, and of course third will be going to fourth grade. But those numbers look pretty healthy. That's 20, 22, 23 is, that's a large class size.
Yeah.
Now, Ranger has small class sizes. There's a concern there, but is it worth the disruption of changing a student's elementary school? The additional transportation costs.
What about that second grade, though? But so the problem there would be you're right up at the cap and you don't have any wiggle room. Is that,
The
would
current
that be
second
your
grade,
concern?
yeah.
The current
Yeah.
second grade, Chris, so up here?
Yes, so the
Because
current.
now you don't have those issues. Now you're not splitting up siblings, you're not, having to redistrict if you were,
Consolidating within the same
You're
school.
consolidating within the same school, yeah.
So what is that, 48 students total?
Yep.
Yeah.
So you're looking
We go up to
at
24.
24 students per class. You're above the cap by one.
Oh, you are above the cap at that point, so never mind.
I think, hold on, let me just look that up. It might be 25. You might be just
I
below
thought
it.
you said 25.
I don't want
Yeah,
to give
for
you
the higher
false
grades.
information. Let me, 25. So you would be under the cap.
But with not much wiggle room.
And isn't there a starting cap, and then there's a, after it starts cap of another 3?
In the event of student registration on or after the first day of school, said class size maximum may be increased by 2 students. So the registration would have to come after the start of the first day of school.
So, I mean, I guess, you know, we'd have to vote, speak more, but to me, that seems like kind of a, you know, we can, without having the redistricting, without having the sibling issue, the transportation issue, that it seems like at least the second grade at Ranger, we can look at consolidation.
Well, it would be next year's third.
Third grade
Or
for
next year's
year.
third.
Yeah.
Well, it's certainly on the table if we find ourselves forced to make cuts.
Well, even if we're not forced, I think it's on the table. It's
Okay.
something we should discuss.
Sure.
And vote on.
I don't think there's anyone up here who wants to do consolidation, but when we're faced with a budget, these are conversations we need to have, and I encourage families out there to, you know, understand what we do offer and the great offerings that we have and the volunteers that we have in the school system, you know, to stay connected with that information. We have such a strong group of parents at the middle school right now that are embracing every bit of information they can get about coming to the high school. And so if we can get that information out there and continue to share it and stop the contention and show that we're working as a town together, that's going to help. So I think I'm going to be the person who keeps saying, put the good word out there because we have a lot to offer.
Well, and I think because of certainly because of the scheduling at the high school.
It's very tricky.
Very, very tricky.
It's very tricky, and obviously, everything does have to be looked at.
And then we have our class size actually going up at the
Right.
middle school.
Right?
Or total classes. Total class size, I'm sorry.
I think we also have to bear in mind the ongoing happenings in our community with the ever-looming threat of building. That might turn things around within the elementary levels.
But not within a year.
Not within a year, no, and certainly not all at once. But that's an unknown that, you know, we just have to be cognizant of at this point. Okay, so anything else on enrollment? I know, to Mr. Haskett's point, it's getting late.
Sorry about that mess up
We've,
there.
no, it's great. We've gone through the line by line. We've gone through an enrollment discussion. I think we're going to continue having another enrollment discussion next time we gather. What I'd like to do is plan for our next session on this. I don't think at this late hour, unless somebody really feels otherwise, that it makes any sense to take any kind of votes. I would like everyone to, you know, maybe think about this some more. If there are major changes that you would like to propose at our next meeting, perhaps come prepared to pitch those changes as a motion. And so we'll discuss it, and we'll take votes. Was there anything, I'm sorry, Deb? Our next meeting is the 24th. Okay. We need to have our preliminary budget wrapped up, ready to go at the March 10th, because the deadline's the 19th. So that'll be our last opportunity before then. And then, you know, if circumstances change within the budget after that, we can talk about adjusting the final request. Are there any topics that we need to ask the superintendent, the business manager, the assistant superintendent, for us to be prepared to get into next week, in 2 weeks, as we get ready to vote?
I've been keeping a list, so if anyone says yay or nay, whether-
Okay.
I mean, this feels like the time to read them.
Sure.
Increasing the annual maintenance budget by 10K. I think that needs to be discussed and voted on.
Yes.
Kim brought up perhaps eliminating Chromebooks K through 3 for 39K in savings. Kim, were you still want to pursue that? Did you still want to talk about that?
I'd like to see it go through middle school, actually.
Okay, whatever,
Yeah.
but a Chromebook
Mhm.
reduction? Whatever, so whatever you were thinking there, Kim. The HBA agreement presentation, 15K increase. And then we just tonight said potentially consolidate Ranger Grade 3. And I don't know what the savings would be on that. But that's what I have. And that we also wanted a presentation on the, or some information on the new in-house program, Sarah, that would, is resulting in savings of 100K. And that's already built into the budget, correct, the 100K savings? Okay. So that's what I have. I don't know if anyone else has, I mean, I guess we can, if we think of things, we can send them to you, Diane?
Yes, please.
I have one thing.
Yeah.
That we could add potentially, and I don't know if this is a number, Brendan, that you're able to pull together, but is there any way that you can show potential cost savings with contracted services versus if we get some in-house hires? Like, where there's potential. I know that we have to contract out for certain things, but for the positions that we currently have a contract for, and we hired somebody in-house, can you show the savings?
Are you primarily referring to special ed?
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, I don't know what you're
I don't know if we have any others outside of
Yeah.
special ed, but yeah, like special ed is one of them,
Just-
like OT, PT, as an example.
Yep.
Some related service providers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
it's mostly special ed.
It's mostly special
It
ed,
might be
so-
all special ed off the top of my head, but.
There are no-
We can,
other contracts out there that we could do in-house, it'd be mostly that.
yeah, none off the top of my head. It's all special ed.
Okay.
Paras, if we can get paras, right? Those are contracted right now, some of those.
I shouldn't say just special ed, but Sarah kind of controls the TA, so that's like the assistant superintendent area, so we'll work together on putting that
Just like a
together.
rough idea
Yeah.
of like, okay, here's what it is now with a contracted person. However, if we're able to hire in-house, this
Yeah.
would be the potential savings. And I know it's hard to,
Yeah, and some of those contracted related service providers or paras are only contracted because we could not hire in-house.
Right,
Even though we
right.
did the advertising for such.
Yeah.
So those positions will be open again at the end of the year. We'll
Yes.
post for those
Right.
again. So we would be looking at that anyway. It's just a matter of whether or not we find qualified candidates for those positions.
right, I understand we're sort of chasing something here that might not pan out, but if we could see a ballpark figure of what that would look like.
Are there any other non-related services contractors that we currently employ?
No, everything's really special ed.
Okay.
Chris, Jocelyn asked at the last meeting about the NEASC accreditation with not having the reading and math specialists.
The library media
library,
specialist, yeah.
Oh, it was library.
Yeah, library media specialist. Does that impact NEASC, which I know you said there's kind of mixed information on that?
That's correct. I do not have a definitive answer for you this evening.
So that.
Okay. Because if there was an impact, we would have to add staff within this budget request.
What was that? Reading
And that was
special?
library staff, right?
Reading and math specialists.
Librarians.
Library.
That's correct.
And then I have 2 benefit premiums. There was supposed to be information on that for health, dental, and life insurance premiums.
Yep, that's the HBA that will be presented next meeting on the 24th.
Okay.
Yep. I received a nice overview today, but obviously couldn't get on the meeting agenda, so we'll do it on the 24th.
So, Madam Chair, is that your thinking, is we're gonna go through some very specific presentations, requests for like very specific things, and then vote maybe on the 10th? Like,
Yes.
what were you thinking?
That is my hope.
Okay.
And that by the 10th, we will come to consensus on the final, well, the preliminary appropriation request. Whether it ends up being exactly as Mr. Andrade proposed or some other number.
Can I also, I've been thinking about, we used to have the Bradley room at the middle school, and then that went away. Is it worth it to bring that back in-house also?
So that was actually, we brought that in-house, that program we had, and then we took that on our own. If you recall, when we did the description of specialized programs, there were 2 programs called RISE at Tiverton Middle School. So we assumed those students who were served in that Bradley classroom, partnership classroom, on our own. If we were to, we don't have the need to bring that back, and then that was still an out-of-district placement. It was just housed in our middle school. We still paid for students who receive services in that Bradley Partnership classroom.
But that is no longer the case. Is that
Correct, because we have we assumed that classroom.
So so you're saying we would just house it, there would be no savings?
Right, exactly. So we're housing it already with Tiverton Public School staff. And then I'm just, on another note, when we did have the program at Tiverton Middle School, it was still considered an out-of-district placement, and there was a tuition for each of those students who attended that program when it was at Tiverton Middle School. So it was just housed here.
So it's just a shared service by all of those Newport districts, and then?
It wasn't even, it was just a Bradley partnership. So it was Bradley School
okay.
had a classroom in Tiverton Middle School.
And did they pay us for use of the building, or no, we just, no?
It did allow students to, it was almost like a step down, if you will, from Bradley school placement, but now we're doing that in-house. So it's sort of a step down or a step up of services.
So are Bradley students coming back here? Have they come back?
Can they come back?
Well, have they come back?
They have come back.
Since
Yep.
RISE
Yep.
started?
Yeah, and they've come back to that program, and we have avoided students going to Bradley.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Not tonight. Yeah, sure.
Again, Dave Perry, Bramble Way. You may not think I don't advocate for the schools. I do. I don't know if you saw last night's meeting, but we had the state delegation there. And my question to them was, the budgets are finalized at the town level. And I know you put in what we think we're going to need for special ed, and that's the number. And then the state does theirs, and their budget is final. So when a child transfers in from Middletown, Portsmouth, wherever it may be, into our district, why doesn't the money follow the child? And they didn't have an answer for that. So I told them, why don't you put some legislation in to do that? Every town would benefit from it. If you got a child coming from Middletown into Tiverton, the money should follow the child. You get one child that comes into your district and costs you $100,000, and your budget is gone.
And I could
So I
certainly
hope they're gonna put that into legislation.
I can certainly see that, even, Mr. Perry, if it was just that initial year, because you didn't budget for it.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. So the money should follow the child.
But then on the flip side, if one of our students leaves us that we've been paying those high costs for,
But you know,
we would have to pay it
You're not
out.
paying for that child. Once he leaves, you're done.
No, our money would then,
Would go with the child, which it should.
we would still spend it on that
You would
child, no
spend it
matter
up to
where.
that period of time, and then whatever's remaining would go with the child. Thank you.
Thank you. So if I understand it correctly, if a child leaves the district mid-year, then the recommendation would be for the district that's sending the child would be responsible for tuition for the remainder of that school year because it has been already budgeted. I understand.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, do we also not, here in Tiverton being a border town, have we experienced children coming in from Massachusetts?
Yes, we have, and
And-
from all other states as well.
Yeah, so that, while your proposal would work for Rhode Island
Rhode Island.
only,
If they come in from Massachusetts or somewhere else.
yeah. Yeah.
But maybe they could get that into every state. I mean, everyone would benefit from it. Everyone.
Thank you.
Especially with the housing coming in.
Okay, I think on that note, we've had a full meeting, and I thank everyone for coming and participating. Thank you to Mr. Andrade for excellent work on the presentations, and Mr. Haskins and Mrs. Krager. So we have absolutely no executive session tonight, which means we will say that our next meeting is on February 24th, 2 weeks from tonight, and then after that, March 10th. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor? No problem there, we're adjourned.